crushed between blood-warm sheets, the woman in my husband's arms was his adopted little sister. I stood frozen at the foot of the bed, clutching the jacket I had hand-stitched for him for 3 entire months. Silk smooth enough to float still grated against my fingertips until they burned. Only when dark flecks spattered the embroidery did I realize I was crying. At last he swung himself off the mattress, shirt unlaced, skin slick, every muscle carved. Jordan. Expressionless as ever, he brushed past me to pour water from the carafe. A slim arm snaked through the bed curtains, snowy skin mottled with love bites. The girl crooked 2 fingers. My husband never tasted the water, he simply set the glass down and lifted that hand to his lips. Then he peeled the finished jacket from my grasp and draped it over her shoulders. Tired, he murmured. She didn't answer. Catching sight of me, she hesitated then smiled sweetly. Sister-in-law. I ignored her. My eyes stayed on the man. Jordan, the Vance peach blossoms haven't even fallen yet. This is how you trample me? He sent for a servant instead of replying. Escort madam to her rooms. The first time I met Jordan he was Tristan's steady companion. Tristan, heir to House Vance, had been my playmate since childhood, his mother and mine were the closest of friends. Years later rumor reached us that the quiet companion had marched to war, won impossible victories, and ridden home a general. In my memory he remained thin, small, silent. When I saw him again he had grown tall and broad, authority crackling around him like static. A girl rode beside him, an orphan rescued on campaign, he said, named Luna. She smiled until dimples showed and called everyone big brother or sister in her soft voice. Eventually Jordan became my husband. And the obedient little I'd never suspected now sprawled across his sheets. Before that day almost the entire city had taken it for granted I would wed Tristan, my mother included. Pre-adolescent, I thought of him only as the teasing older boy who spoiled me. The moment feelings dawned, they fixed on Jordan instead. I wept, refused meals, threatened worse, until mother broke and let me have my way. Lady Vance cooled toward me overnight, Tristan disappeared from my life. Fate has a sense of humor. I loved Jordan, Tristan loved Luna and could not have her. Now Jordan and Luna were tangled in each other's arms, leaving Tristan and me empty-handed. When the tears finally dried I sat in my carriage, hollow, neither sad nor angry. Jordan, once an obscure companion, later a celebrated general, should have meant nothing to me. I would never have scorned him, but neither would I have cared. Then came the spring hunt, an assassin's arrow, a plunge off the cliff, and Jordan's back beneath me for the long, bleeding trek to camp. The metallic scent of his wound clung to my nostrils long after we reached safety, and something inside me surrendered. Street hawkers' cries drifted through the swaying curtain. I surfaced from memory and opened my mouth to order the driver to stop just as hoofbeats thundered toward us. The carriage lurched to a halt. Jordan. What newlywed bliss too busy to answer your heir summons? Has some vixen addled your wits? The voice was light, familiar, infuriating. Hearing no reply, it called again. Jordan. Show yourself. I yanked the curtain aside and hurled my embroidered sachet at the rider. Astride a towering bay lounged Tristan, robes askew, collarbones glinting, every inch the rake. He caught the perfumed pouch, lifted it to his nose, and inhaled with theatrical pleasure. I snapped. Shut up, you oaf, it's your ladyship. He grinned, brow arched. Ah, sister-in-law. For the title made me want to scream. For 10 years he'd been my big, but he and Jordan had since sworn brotherhood, and Tristan happened to be the younger by a month. My marriage upgraded me to the dreaded title. This was our first meeting since the wedding, and the irony curdled my stomach. He dipped his head. Since you are my elder brother's bride, I'll trouble you no further. Peace, sister. I stepped down before he could spur away. Tristan, where are you going? He guided his mount aside, face turning proper. Sister-in-law, propriety - cut the nonsense. Answer. Home to bury myself in books, of course. Bull. Undoubtedly off to let courtesans add incense to his study. In my teens he had smuggled me into the pleasure quarter every chance he got, so skillfully that no tutor, parent, or guard ever noticed. The first night we returned, Eleanor made him kneel until dawn. He could hardly stand the next morning. Yet the following week he was back, dragging me along. We would order platters of pastries, musicians would play, I stuffed my face while he sat cross-legged, sipping tea and listening. Because their chestnut cakes were heaven, I never refused. Since Luna rejected his heart, however, the covert tea concerts had become public courtesan wine binges. Serves you right, I thought, though I knew better than to argue once he'd decided something. I let my shoulders droop and murmured, I miss Human House's chestnut cakes. A beat of silence then, loud enough for half the street to hear. Mother longs to see her daughter-in-law. She bids me bring you home. Success. My laugh slipped out before I could smother it. Tristan flicked me a sideways look, I wiped the smile clean. Sister-in-law, back into the carriage. We ride to Vance. Mounted ahead of me, he set an almost bridal pace, and the absurd picture of a groom fetching his bride flashed through my mind until Jordan's face blotted it out and my grin withered. Dinner with Eleanor was impossible. The sound of her name tightened my lungs with shame. Once, while other girls fawned and gained only polite smiles, she had held my hand every visit. Now she treated me like any stranger, colder, perhaps. I was brooding when Tristan cut in. Change clothes. I'm taking you to Human House. A lacquered trunk appeared at his signal. Inside. Now. Thus I re-entered the brothel in a box. The lid had barely opened before silk-draped beauties ringed me, perfume thick as fog. So this is our illustrious general? A rare sight indeed. Across the room Tristan poured wine, not bothering to look. I smiled at the women. Long time no see. An older courtesan tilted her head. Madam and I are unacquainted, I fear. We were anything but. She used to feed me chestnut cakes in her lap when I scampered in as a child. After I fell for Jordan I stopped coming, terrified he'd disapprove. Guilt pinned my tongue. Tristan set his cup down. Enough chatter. Out with it. I straightened. Nothing urgent. Just checking on you. Checking on me? Your heart looks like a sieve, I thought, but I mumbled, nothing. His gaze sharpened. You've been crying. I glanced away, his frown deepened, intimidating for someone usually so playful. Jordan? Trapped beneath those eyes, I couldn't confess that the man I'd fought to marry was in bed with the girl Tristan adored. I denied it too quickly. He said nothing for a long while. Steaming plates of chestnut cakes arrived, I didn't dare touch them. At last he ordered, escort Lady Jordan home. I started to protest, one languid look killed the words. Switching back to the shameless rake, he drawled, does sister-in-law find my company addictive? Alas, I have a prior engagement with lovelier company. Until next time. They boxed me up again, carried me to Vance, and from there I drove back to cross-cursing Tristan every red of the way for denying me a single cake. The pastries reached me anyway, delivered hot under Vance's seal. I forgave him instantly. Jordan had been absent for days. I enjoyed the quiet, smiling thinly at the thought that his carefree hours were numbered. As I swallowed the final cake, a servant announced that Madame requested my presence. It hit the floor with a clatter. I needed no guide to Vance. I found Eleanor alone beneath the peach tree in the rear garden, regal in smoky lavender. I could not make myself step closer. She spoke without turning. You might as well come here. I obeyed. Long moments passed before she looked at me. Marriage has made you timid, Serena. I wouldn't dare presume on your kindness. Eleanor's gaze returned to the blossoms. Oh? When did you begin fearing I'd be angry? The words froze on my tongue as she went on. These flowers bloom as gloriously as ever. They did. In full spring I used to laze under these branches all day, convinced no peach tree on earth could rival Eleanor's. Do you know who planted it? She asked. I swallowed. No, madam. No, she echoed softly, you don't. Besides, she went on, I imagine you don't even remember that these peach trees were planted because you begged Tristan when you were small, said you wouldn't set foot in Vance without them. Children's nonsense, of course, not to be taken seriously. The next day you arrived and forgot all about the peach trees. Eleanor fell quiet and simply watched me. I finished the rest of her speech in my head. I had forgotten, but Tristan remembered. No wonder the trees flourished, he must have tended them with his own hands. My guilt sharpened. I cursed the girl I'd been, the girl who'd avoided Tristan on Luna's word, terrified Jordan would be jealous. To Tristan, I was the faithless, heartless little. I was wrong, Aunt Eleanor, I said, sincere. Wrong, she replied coldly. About what? Pretending you didn't know he loved you? Or ignoring the 3 months he lay near death after saving you? My body turned to stone, the words refused to line up in my mind. When they finally did, I didn't dare believe him. My face drained of color. No, no, no. Tristan loves Luna, I told myself. Jordan is the one who saved me. What is she talking about? 7. My thumb glided along the sandalwood teeth of the comb gaps and ridges. On our wedding day, every guest had sent jewels, jade, silks, only Tristan had given a comb. When I asked the maid, she'd only murmured, the gentleman said it was nothing, just from someone who knows you. But Tristan? Impossible. A tap at the door, Ivy called softly, Mississippi. I steadied my breath, laid the comb in its box, smoothed my hair. Come. The door opened. Ivy entered, eyes lowered. Behind her, 2 burly men dragged a gagged maid who sobbed and thrashed. They dropped her on the carpet and knelt. Miss, she's delivered. I met my own gaze in the mirror, fingers on my carmine lips, and smiled. Ivy. She stepped forward. Miss is merciful. Tell the truth and earn your life. Protect your mistress and you'll sample hell first. A man yanked the gag free. The maid kowtowed, forehead drumming the floor. Madam, spare Stacy. I swear I know nothing. Stacy? I turned. Stacy, thinking of Jordan. Luna certainly named you well. I laughed at her bloodshot eyes. Take her away. Be tidy, don't dirty my rug. When they were gone I stared at the lacquered box. 1 stick of incense later Ivy returned. She's talked. Speak. She says Luna never met Air in private. The so-called love token was given to Master Cross, then taken by Luna. My nails bit my palms. Go on. She also says the day you were wounded at the spring hunt, Luna fainted from weeping. Master Cross came that night. The maid overheard him say, dash out with it. He said he hadn't risked his life, so she needn't worry. When Luna asked who had saved you, he refused the name, only called the man a fool who would lose everything. And, the assassins may have had his approval. I shook, tears falling. Jordan. Jordan, I flung every gift he had ever given me to the floor. Jordan. You deceived me, used me, tried to kill me. May you rot. Sleeping with Luna I could have stomached, he'd never promised fidelity. But the plotting, the lies, the hijacking of Tristan's devotion, how dare he? I composed myself. Ivy, ready the carriage. We're going to General's Aid. I reached my father's house while Jordan was out. When the news caught up with him, Rowan had already sent a courteous note, missing my daughter, keeping her a short while. Jordan had no polite rebuttal. He sent servants 3 times, first to ask whether Luna's maid was with me, second to ask when I'd return, third not a question at all, simply announcing Luna had been removed from Cross. I knew the performance for what it was. On the surface, a fond father longed for his child, underneath, the scent of scandal. A bride back in her parents' house within a fortnight? Tongues would wag, and on the council floor Rowan's glare would bore into him. Jordan was cornered. Late that night I dismissed every maid and sat alone before my mirror, candle low. After the spring hunt I'd heard Tristan was gravely ill. Believing we'd both been wounded by assassins, I'd wanted to visit. Then Luna appeared, gushing gratitude for Air's life-saving gallantry and begging me to return his token. Her heart, she sighed, belonged to another. The token was a jade medallion, the very one from Eleanor's family, flawless stone carved by a master, brought as dowry into Vance, presented to Tristan at his coming of age. Unaware of its value, I had once teased him for it, offering to trade. He had smiled and refused anything else, but not that medallion. I'd sulked, then learned its history and understood. Now it lay in Luna's palm. I hardly recall what I felt, only that I said, "If you wish to thank him, visit yourself," and walked away. Later I dispatched expensive medicines, but I never saw Tristan again. I told myself propriety forbade it. Soon I would be Jordan's wife, and anyway, Tristan's heart was Luna's. Now I know, the one whose heart belonged elsewhere had been me. If I had questioned Luna, if petty pride hadn't ruled me, if I had gone to Vance, fate might have turned. 10 years of friendship alone should have sent me. I had been delirious from poison. I woke to Jordan and never doubted. Luna's whispers did the rest, convincing me Tristan had bled for her. My stupidity is my punishment. Yet, my gaze drifted to the sandalwood comb, then to the peach tree outside Vance's rear garden where Jordan had proposed. Knowing Tristan planted it made my skin crawl. Jordan would be dealt with, divorce first, revenge later. But Tristan. I had no map for that ache. 9. The man who carried me out of the mountains is the one who quickens my pulse. The feeling may be young, but it is true, else I'd never have fought to marry Jordan. Had I known it was Tristan who saved me, not Jordan, I would probably be Tristan by now. We were raised together, he spoiled and pampered me, and both families expected the match. Before the spring hunt, I had pictured exactly that future because no one else could make me laugh as he did. I studied the comb until my eyes blurred. A sudden bang, wind burst in, a hand sealed my mouth. My heart slammed. Whoever he was, he kept his distance, a handkerchief between his palm and my lips. Good, not a prowler. If a kidnapper, he needed me alive. If a fugitive, quiet cooperation might save me. The sandalwood comb slipped and clattered to the floor. Damn. His breathing changed. He spun me around and I found myself staring at a face I knew better than my own. Tristan? Here? In my chamber? Looking like a man on the run? This is General's house? He rasped. Obviously. If you'd landed in Father's room, your head would be rolling by now. I bit the retort back, something was wrong. He could still stand, but his cheeks were scarlet, eyes unfocused, breath ragged, obviously barely upright. I touched his forehead. Burning. The window stood ajar, moonlight fractured across his nose and trembling lashes. He leaned against the wall, hand slipping from my shoulder. I had always known Tristan was handsome, the catch of the capital. Only now did the knowledge hit me in the chest. I shoved the thought away. He needed a bed, medicine before I could act. The world tilted. He surged, pinning me to the wall. One moment a dying man, the next strength restored. He tilted his head slightly, and I studied him in the moonlight. The confusion was gone from his eyes, replaced by something else, something that scared me. I'd never seen that look on Tristan's face before, equal parts pain and exhilaration, savage and impatient, like a wolf crouched for the kill. Instinct screamed at me to run, but the familiar scent rolling off his skin loosened my limbs. Surely he'd been dosed, his mind addled. He didn't even recognize me. Tristan leaned in until his breath grazed my ear, his cheek brushing my hair. Softly he murmured, "Avery." Fine. He still knew who I was. But hearing that childhood nickname after so many years felt stranger, even more awkward than being called sister-in-law. The thought had barely formed when something warm and soft pressed against my ear through my hair. My eyes flew open. Feeling me freeze, he chuckled at my temple. Only then did it hit me, the man in front of me was no longer the gentle big brother of my memories. He was undeniably, dangerously male. And the night was veering in a direction that made my heart hammer. He cupped my face, gently forcing me to meet his gaze. Those eyes could steal a soul, inviting, indulgent. Tristan leaned closer. I turned away and squeezed my eyes shut. A rip my skirt tore. I held my breath. Another tear fabric again. What was he doing, stripping me bare? Then the weight on me vanished, the hand against my cheek gone. I opened my eyes to find Tristan on the floor, using the strip he'd torn to lash his left wrist to the bedpost. A blindfold covered his eyes. His lips trembled as he muttered something. I crept closer and caught a single word, go. I pressed my own lips together. Tristan, you dash, he sensed my presence and whipped his blindfolded face toward me, suddenly frantic. Go. I told you go. His roar startled me. I shoved the door open and ran. Fine, go. If the poison kills you, you deserve it. I spent that night in the guest chamber. Next morning, after steeling myself, I fetched the general's trusted physician and carried a breakfast tray to his door. No answer. I pushed it open a crack, the room was empty. Only a box of chestnut pastries remained on the table, a note beneath it bearing Tristan's handwriting 2 words, apologies. I wanted to stay angry, yet I couldn't. At least he was alive. I summoned Ivy. Rapid breathing, flushed face, muddled mind. What kind of poison does that? Ivy hesitated. Miss, I've seen it once before. When? A few days before your wedding, someone sent a woman to the general's quarters. The general had her thrown out. I glimpsed her same signs Huin Yang described. She said it was an aphrodisiac. An aphrodisiac? I sent men to buy a parrot. No, mindless congratulations, get rich. Or long life, great fortune. Drivel. I wanted one that cussed. Within days a storyteller arrived with a bird that squawked bastard. At the top of its lungs, I paid happily and dispatched the creature to Vance. 3 days later it came back, feathers ruffled, spirit crushed. Instead of roaring bastard, it crooned in a tiny voice, this lowly one knows his wrongs, knows his wrongs. Yet the moment Tristan's name was spoken it piped, still on cue, jerk. The servants tried not to giggle. With the palace banquet approaching, I sat at my mirror while Ivy dressed my hair. Has the divorce letter been delivered? A maid behind me answered, yes, miss. Ivy paused. Vivian sent to ask whether you'll travel with her. I lowered my gaze. Tell her I'm going with Mother. Inside the carriage I curled against Mother's lap, feeling her gentle fingers stroke my hair. Mother, remember when I lost a jade bead as a child and cried forever? Williams laughed. I remember. You said such losses would happen often. Only now do I understand, no matter how precious, once dropped some things can never be found again. The palace ballroom blazed with lantern light, dazzling and blinding. I couldn't focus. I saw Tristan half-lit profile, effortless charm while Vivian gazed at him the way I once gazed at Jordan. The wine served to the ladies was mild pear brew, delicious and hard to notice. I drank cup after cup until the chandeliers tripled. Chin in hand, I watched the minister kneel, rise, kneel again, petitioning his. When his inquired, the man kowtowed once more, I beg an imperial favor for my daughter, her heart is set on Vance Tristan. I grabbed Ivy's shoulder. I feel ill, I need air. Don't follow me. The moment the words left my mouth my head grew heavier, steps unsteady. I shouldn't have left the hall. Trying to retrace my wobbling path, I tripped over my own feet and pitched forward straight into a familiar pair of arms. Word as a stray cat has slipped into the palace, a laughing voice murmured. Looks like I found it, one very drunk cat. The teasing jerked me half awake. When he tried to steady me I clung tighter, suddenly overwhelmed with grievance. HNNNGH Tristan, Jordan's a bastard, I want a divorce, wah. The arms supporting me froze. After a long moment a hoarse question drifted down. Why? He betrayed me, he never loved me, he loves Luna, he wants me dead, wah. I burrowed into his chest. His breathing quickened, he lifted my face. Avery, look at me. I met Tristan's eyes, soft with forced calm yet blazing underneath. You say Jordan wants you dead? After that tearful tirade the night blanked out. I woke back at the general's mansion to red-eyed Vivian dabbing frantically with a handkerchief, words sharp as needles. "Aren't you infatuated with Lord Cross? Why fight me for the air? Does having them orbit you feel good? Truth is, I hate the pastries here, and I don't like you. I approached you only for his sake. But since I once spoke up for you, if you don't want him, stop clinging please." So Tristan had refused her. No more rose pastry visits. I stared at the sandalwood comb. It was time to settle things with Tristan. Before I could seek him out, Jordan arrived bearing the divorce agreement, his signature already scrawled on it. He looked haggard, jaw stubbled. Rumor said Luna had vanished for 3 days. I assumed he'd come fishing for clues. Instead he studied me for a long moment and muttered, "You've lost weight. Was the man blind?" I'd eaten and slept well, my waist had thickened. He hesitated. "When I was your study companion I fell and scraped my knee. Do you remember the handkerchief you gave me?" I rolled my eyes inwardly. No. I stepped closer. "But I do remember our wedding night, Jordan. You said Luna was ill, rushed to her, never came back. The blood on that handkerchief?" I cut my own palm. "Jordan, you deserve this." I sat on the bed, staring at the neat lines of the divorce agreement. A tap sounded. "Come in." Ivy padded in, cradling a plump, round pigeon. "Look, Miss Arfati is back." This bird had shuttled between Tristan and me before we drifted apart. He would send trinkets to tease me, I'd retaliate with doodles of tortoises or cryptic barbs cribbed from novels. His note would arrive, slight improvement. The name Fatty had been Tristan's idea. Every time the pigeon landed I stuffed it for days before release, eventually it ballooned. Tristan claimed it grew lazier about letters and fatter about flesh, hence Fatty. I untied the note bound to its paw and slowly unfolded it, recognizing the familiar handwriting. "Meet tonight at the Cat by the lake, 8 sharp." The Cat was a lakeside gazebo Tristan and I had discovered as children. When the roof cast its shadow on the ground it looked just like a cat, so we called it the Cat. I tucked the note away, waited until every maid had fallen asleep, then slipped out alone. I walked to the pavilion and stood quietly, watching the black silhouette on the ground, a faint smile tugging at my lips. The night was hushed, broken only by an occasional cool breeze rustling the treetops. Footsteps approached from behind, my eyes brightened as I turned. Tris dashed before I could finish, a handkerchief clamped over my mouth and nose, the world spun, and everything went black. When I woke, scarlet veils fluttered in front of me and crimson candles flickered. I sat up and discovered I was wearing my wedding gown, the same one I had worn on my wedding day with Jordan, and the room was decorated exactly as it had been then. It felt as though I had truly traveled back to that day, before I knew the truth, before the divorce papers, when I was only a shy, expectant bride waiting for her groom. While the thought formed, the door creaked open and a man in red robes stepped slowly inside. It was Jordan. Seeing me, he smiled, the candlelight blazing in his eyes. "Serena, today is our wedding day." 15. I drew a deep breath. Stay calm, stay calm, stay calm. God knows what lunacy Jordan is up to. On our original wedding day he had abandoned me because Luna was ill, then spent the entire week with her, even flaunting it in front of me. Now that we're divorced, he drugs me in Tristan's name just to stage another wedding? I swallowed and asked carefully, "Jordan, have you been possessed?" I tried to sound gentle, but Jordan only smiled and kept walking closer. It was surreal. I had never seen Jordan smile at me with such tenderness, and it made my skin crawl. I edged back on the bed, inch by inch, while Jordan advanced. I was debating whether to kick upward or downward when an uproar broke out beyond the door, a familiar woman's frantic screams threading through it. "Let go of me. I'm cross. Do you all have a death wish? Unhand me." The door burst open and a woman strode in, naturally stunning, radiant except her clothes were disheveled and an ugly scar crawled across her left forehead. It was Luna. What had happened to her? Jordan lifted a hand, halting the maids who tried to follow, and regarded Luna with no expression. "Didn't I tell you to rest?" Why are you here? Luna's twisted face melted into sweetness. She wrapped her arms around him. I came because I missed you. Jordan showed none of his usual soft regard, he pushed her away. Luna, Serena won't like it. I didn't. I tried to make myself even smaller. Luna froze, then slowly turned and saw me on the bed. She smiled her old gentle smile and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Oh, sister-in-law. I had no idea what to say, I only stared. Luna, you dash, suddenly she shrieked, yanking her own hair. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Trembling, she touched the scar on her forehead, then spun like a lost child, eyes finally locking on mine, brimming with hatred. It's you, all because of you. She lunged. She seized my skirt, her free hand raking toward my face, then jerked still. Jordan stood behind her, hand gripping a dagger buried in her chest. Blood blossomed across her dress. She had always loved pale yellow, I'd never seen anyone wear it half as well. In life she'd been a brilliant bloom, in death she looked like a fading flower. Luna sank into Jordan's arms, fingers brushing the blood. Cough, so red. She gazed up at him. Jordan, is today our wedding day? Her lips parted, the sparkling eyes I remembered were already dim. Jordan ordered servants to drag her away. I looked elsewhere, trembling. Jordan stepped over the bloody floor and lifted my chin. Crying? His thumb brushed away tears that weren't there. Don't cry, Serena. That woman isn't worth a single drop. She helped plan the Spring Hunt assassination, you know Luna wanted you dead. 16 I couldn't read Jordan's mind, I no longer recognized him. The woman he had treasured like a jewel moments ago now lay discarded by his hand. I turned my face away from his fingers. Jordan started to speak, then glanced back and smiled. They're here. The door opened, Tristan walked in wearing a pale blue cloud brocade robe. Jordan's grin widened. The crown's lapdog abandons his master for a woman? He spun back. Fine. Tonight, both you and the crown will die in this city. Tristan remained calm. Jordan, are you rebelling? Jordan didn't answer, he merely looked at me. Rowan's daughter is with me, what choice will he make, do you think? Tristan stepped forward. If you hate me, don't drag others into it. Hate you? Jordan looked incredulous. I only want riches and power beyond measure. Hatred blazed in his eyes. Yet you, with your broken body and useless anger, will die here. If not for you and that viper Eleanor, I wouldn't have had to grovel all these years, and my mother wouldn't have frozen to death. Like a beast savoring its prey's last twitch, Jordan wanted Tristan to suffer more. Do you know who else took part in the Spring Hunt assassination? Seeing Tristan's unwavering gaze, he understood. You knew all along. Of course, brilliant heir, how could you not know the mastermind was the Duke himself? Tristan rubbed thumb against finger, his guess was confirmed. So that was how Jordan had slipped past Avery inside Vance, who but the Duke could tamper with his rooms? After the assassination attempt, Tristan had suspected as much, but the web was so tangled that one careless tug could drag down all of Vance and Avery. So upon waking he had kept silent, claiming only that his horse had bolted and sent him over a cliff. The only variable had been Avery, wrong place, wrong time, fate's joke. Reading Tristan's thoughts, Jordan sneered. Noble heir, trying to shield Vance alone, wishful thinking. Beyond Vance, I know of one more thing you cherish. Jordan looked at me, cold light in his eyes. I clutched the brocade quilt, recoiling from his reaching hand. He didn't care, his voice was gentle. I wronged you on our wedding day, tonight I make it right. After this, you'll be my lawfully wedded wife. I glanced at Tristan, who stood frowning in silent agony, and tears slid down my cheeks. No, don't. Jordan leaned closer, thumb wiping my tears, trailing lower. My heart hardened, I yanked the hairpin from my hair and drove it toward his neck. A hand caught my wrist before the point touched him. Serena, still as reckless as ever. I struggled, but my right arm wouldn't budge. Jordan bent nearer, then felt a faint sting in his neck and saw my blood-smeared fingernail. He frowned, unbothered, and tried again only to feel his limbs grow weak. I smiled. Jordan, you shouldn't have underestimated me. I gave him a push and he toppled. I'd never expected the hairpin to land, it was only bait so the powder under my nail could work. Not fatal, but enough to rob every muscle of strength. I carried stronger poisons as backup, but they weren't needed. I retrieved the fallen hairpin, walked over, and knelt beside him. Jordan, do you have any idea how terrified I was when those blades came for me during the spring hunt? If not for Tristan, I'd already be dead. I rammed the hairpin into his shoulder, the drug made the pain bite deeper. You tried to kill me, betrayed me, deceived me. You blame others for your misery, but can you even count your own crimes? I stood, turned away, and hurried to Tristan. Tristan managed a smile. Any slower and I'd have stepped in myself. I lifted the corner of my mouth to answer, then saw his face go white as he dropped to his knees. Tristan. 17, I caught him, frantic. What's wrong? He coughed, blood on his lips. It's nothing. Don't worry. Your face is white and you're bleeding, how is that nothing? No wonder Tristan had stayed quiet and let me handle Jordan alone. He'd barely been able to stand, let alone fight. Tristan gripped my arm. This doesn't happen again, understood? Yes, anything you say, just don't speak. I coaxed him, dabbing at the blood with my sleeve, but it kept flowing. Jordan, lying nearby, gave a low laugh. I snapped, Jordan, what did you do? He stared at the ceiling, lips curling. Think I'd let Tristan walk in unscathed? I gave him a choice. To see you, he had to swallow the poison I prepared. Try to force his way in and he'd leave with a corpse. As if recalling a fine joke, Jordan burst into wild laughter. Works every time, ha ha ha. I swallowed my rage and said to Tristan, don't worry, I'll take you to a doctor. I'll have father beg the imperial physicians to make an antidote. As I spoke, the tears I'd held back finally spilled. Why did you follow me? I could have kept myself safe alone, nothing would have happened. Tristan coughed up another mouthful of blood. But I would be afraid, Avery. He reached out and gently closed his hand over mine. I don't dare gamble. I bit my lip, cursing myself for walking knowingly into Jordan's trap just so I could take revenge with my own hands. Yet revenge meant nothing next to Tristan's life. Jordan was still smiling. He won't last much longer. At the sound of his voice I calmed at once and looked at him coldly. Is that so? Tristan will be fine, I can't say the same for you. I stared at Jordan with ice in my eyes. Jordan, do you hear that? Outside came the rhythmic tramp of boots, the clatter of armor like 1,000 troops closing in. I gave a thin, cold smile. Jordan, take your precious glory and go straight to hell. 18 Tristan pulled through in the end. Crown had found the antidote, and he was now recuperating in the Crown residence. I sniffed, so the man still had a shred of conscience. Only later did I learn that, beyond my own suspicions, both Tristan and Crown had long seen through Jordan's scheme and laid their countertrap. 2 months earlier they had already written to Emery, the frontier commander. 1 month later 10,000 refugees entered the capital. Jordan's faction, busy blocking elite troops from the city, never noticed the swelling numbers of refugees. Had Prince or his strategists paid the slightest attention to the common people, they would have spotted the soldiers hidden among them. Before I let myself be captured, I'd sent word to father, telling him to hurry to the Imperial and protect the Emperor in merit to offset my crime. Treason calls for the extermination of 9 clans, though Jordan and I were divorced, Imperial whims are unpredictable. The next day, in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, I knelt respectfully. Sam pays homage to his. The Emperor shifted slightly on the throne. Oh, so you're Rowan's daughter? Before I could answer, his majestic voice rolled out again. Quite a beauty. I'd expected interrogation about Jordan, yet after a few trivial questions he dismissed me, as though the whole affair were a feather blown away by the wind. When I had gone, the emperor waved the rest of the court out and kept Rowan alone. "Is there anything else, dear minister?" Rowan stepped forward, bowed, and knelt. "Yes, your majesty." He produced a tiger tally and raised it with both hands. "I beg a favor for my daughter." 19 The day after I returned to the general's manor the edict arrived, I was genuinely stunned. Who knew a divorce could carry such weight? Still, the emperor had spoken. Even if anyone still linked me to Jordan's rebellion, from this day on the link was severed. I hadn't expected the duke to be implicated as well, but because heir had shielded the emperor, his merits balanced his faults and no charges were pressed. The entire Vance household, hundreds of souls, was spared. The duke himself could not escape death, he and Jordan would be executed in 3 days. Prince's mansion was exiled to the borderlands. I ordered the servants to plant Luna in a spot with a pleasant view. They say the gash on her face was self-inflicted. After Jordan smuggled her out, she slipped back, met scavengers with foul intent, and slashed her own cheek with a hairpin to save herself. She lost her mind. Jordan then took her home. Tristan's poison was neutralized within days. When I visited him at the Crown residence, something felt off. I'd thought it a rare, vicious toxin. How could Crown's men cure it so easily? As I was leaving, I heard Crown muttering behind me. Curious, this Tristan carried the antidote on him all along, yet simply refused to take it, as if I needed more proof. Tristan is ever cautious, even worried for me. He would never let himself be so vulnerable. Would he swallow poison just because Jordan demanded? "You shameless bastard, Tristan!" I stormed out of the residence and resolved to wage a month-long cold war. Crown watched my retreating back, lifted an eyebrow, and strolled inside. Tristan sat on the couch with a book. Seeing Crown, he set it aside. "Please, show mercy." Crown snorted. "This prince is punishing you for concealment and failure to report." Humming a tune, he turned at the door. "On your wedding day, remember to invite me for a drink." 20 I ignored Tristan for a week. I even dropped by the Jade for courtesan wine. A girl I knew told me Prince's clique frequented the place. That was how Tristan and company had gathered so much intelligence. "Madam," you flicked her handkerchief. "Men can hide anything except when they're flat on a woman's belly." She swayed over and tapped my forehead. "My lady, go easy on your sweetheart. Ever since you got engaged he's here drinking every day. If you don't like my girls, don't waste good liquor." Flushed, I stuffed a chestnut pastry into my mouth. "Madam," you fanned herself, laughing. "He gets drunk and calls for Avery, as if I keep a girl by that name." 3 days later I finally asked Tristan to go riding. He rode his black stallion, Chinfeng. I was on my white mare, Tongyu. The 2 horses must be mates. They kept nuzzling until Tristan patted Chinfeng's neck and brought him under control. Sunset streamed over the hills. I looked at Tristan, summoned my courage only to have him speak first. "Avery, there's a sea of wildflowers ahead. Shall we go?" My mouth opened, then closed. "Yes." Tristan smiled gently. "Avery, you may do whatever you please, whether it's eating chestnut pastries at the Jade or planting peach trees in Vance's rear garden. I'll indulge you in everything." The horse's hooves drummed softly as the evening glow spilled across the flowers. "Oh," I said. 21 6 months later Tristan and I were finally married for 2 reasons. First, the swarm of butterflies around me was unbearable. Second, the same swarm around him was just as annoying. While I was preparing my dowry, he secretly sent over a wedding gown. He confessed he'd taught himself embroidery before I'd even come of age, and had spent 2 years stitching it. Slightly tipsy, eyes shining, he said, "You'll look magnificent in it." I examined every inch and judged, still not as fine as a professional needlewoman nor as good as mine. The next morning, sober, he sent another gown, this one sewn by the capital's best craftsman. The stitches were indeed exquisitely tight, the blossoms startlingly lifelike. On our wedding day I wore the one Tristan had made himself. Vivian sent a jade rui and, for Tristan, an embroidered sachet apparently stitched by her own hand. I kept the rui and returned the sachet. Oddly, though Tristan can hold his liquor and had several groomsmen to shield him, he was drunk by the time he reached the bridal chamber, eyes bright, cheeks flushed. When he lifted my veil, he nearly dropped the scale. He pressed his cheek into my palm. Avery, at last, my heart's desire is fulfilled. I smiled slowly. That single fulfillment lasted 40 years. End of main text. Side story. The first time Tristan saw Sam, she was wrapped in scarlet like a round lantern in the snow, a pastry in her hand as she threw herself into his arms, soft and sweet. The Vance manor overflowed with young sons everywhere. He had never had even a younger female cousin, let alone a sister. He adored this little. She was like a flawless pearl meant to be cradled in someone's palm. He spoiled her without limits. The plot in the rear garden had been meant for his study, but Sam wailed until he agreed to plant peach trees. No peaches, no visit to Vance. Tristan decided the study could stay small, admiring blossoms during breaks might be even more pleasant. He told Eleanor, procured fine saplings, and planted them himself. The next day Sam arrived, having forgotten all about peach trees. She never glanced at the scraggly sticks. Tristan reasoned that bare trees were hardly attractive, perhaps when they bloomed she would notice. He watered them daily and checked on them each night. When the trees finally flowered, Sam had long forgotten she'd asked for them. She simply thought the blossoms beautiful. Tristan didn't mind, her delight was enough. He kept thinking that way for years. Then he realized the thoughts had turned shameful. Planting peach trees had once been a ruse to entice her to visit, now he wanted to capture her heart, to keep her beside him for life. While riding north to obtain a rare treasure, he ran into bandits. Jordan, returning from campaigning, took an arrow meant for him and saved his life. Tristan swore brotherhood with him and they returned to the capital together. Hence, when Jordan later asked for that jade medallion, Tristan merely pondered a moment, consulted Eleanor, and gave it up. When Jordan inquired about Sam, he answered truthfully, "The one I love." During the spring hunt, assassins struck. Tristan fought his way towards Sam, but while shielding her he was grazed several times and they tumbled off a cliff. Half conscious and racked with pain, he realized the blade had been poisoned. Fortunately Avery had only knocked her head and sustained light bruises, she hadn't been poisoned. He felt her burning cheek, but to his fevered touch it seemed cool. Got to get Avery out. At the last moment he passed her, on his back, to Jordan, then collapsed. When he woke he heard the news, General was engaged to the rising hero Jordan. A match made in heaven. However much he brooded, they were the destined pair, while he remained a passerby. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and share with friends. We look forward to your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more wonderful tales. See you next time.